Did you know that more people have stepped onto the surface of the moon than have dived into the depths of the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean? That's right, although we might think we're pretty clued up with what's going on in the deep blue sea, we've really only skimmed the surface, literally. The ocean occupies around 70% of the total surface area of the Earth, and most of it is still untouched and waiting to be examined. But scientists are doing their best to venture down into the unknown. Make sure to stick around until the end to hear about the sea canyon that's big enough to fit the entire Grand Canyon inside. You might have assumed that the deeper the water in the ocean, the colder it'll be, and that's what scientists generally believe to be true until they discovered deep-sea vents in 1977. As the name suggests, these vents are formed on the ocean floor and occur when seawater circulates through hot volcanic rocks. These vents can reach temperatures of up to 752 degrees Fahrenheit, but weirdly enough do not boil due to the high pressure of the ocean. As well as being chock full of minerals, these bursts of hot water also contain chemicals that feed the microbes that live on the seabed. While they're fascinating to learn about, you definitely don't want to get too close because you'd be in for a nasty surprise. The thought of being blasted with fatally hot water might be terrifying, but the unusual creatures that exist nearby don't seem to mind. In fact, they actually benefit from these vents. These creepy critters are known collectively as hydrothermal vent communities, and they harvest chemical energy from the minerals and chemical compounds. They're unlike anything else on this planet in the sense that many of them thrive in ridiculously hot environments. Whereas most of us wouldn't last more than seconds in this habitat, some of them use the temperatures to grow to their best. One of the chemicals released from these vents is hydrogen sulfide, which is highly toxic to humans and most animals, but somehow these microbes have adapted to benefit from it. Not that you'd be able to reach these depths, but we're fairly sure that after hearing about what's down there, you probably wouldn't want to. But that's not the only bacteria-loving source that sticks deep in the water. The ocean itself is actually a giant cesspool of viruses and pathogens. Coastal waters are plagued with sewage from nearby waterlogged pipes, and all of that has to go somewhere. In 2016, CBS reported that a 67-year-old man had died of a flesh-eating bacterium that he picked up while swimming in the sea. In some particularly crazy cases, these viruses have ended up lost by the vents and have been fighting the bacteria living down there for nutrients. Who knows what sort of crazy, never-seen-before illnesses are waiting at the bottom. And in some cases, this bacteria can even come together in such a dense package that their glow can be seen from satellite images. Or at least, that's what experts suspected had happened. A mysterious orange glow over the sea was spotted back in 1995, and scientists couldn't figure out what was causing it for a long time. Sensors showed a vast region of the Indian Ocean, which was about the size of Connecticut, glowing for 3 nights in a row. It was also spotted from a ship nearby. In 2005, scientists finally claimed that a collective group of bacteria under the water was most likely, although not confirmed. Surely the only thing scarier than these dark places filled with bacteria and almost otherworldly microbes is the deepest place known in the entire ocean. Yep, we're talking about the Mariana Trench. This deep-sea trench covers the floor of the western North Pacific Ocean and is the deepest such trench known on Earth. It stretches for more than 1,580 miles with a width of 43 miles. Would you believe that scientists only descended to the bottom of the trench in 1960? A record dive was made to 35,814 feet, and that record wasn't broken for more than 50 years, when Canadian filmmaker James Cameron beat the record with a 35,756 feet dive in 2012. By now you've probably got a few ideas in your head as to the horrific-looking creatures that live in this area of the world, and we're here to confirm that some of the animals that spend their days deep under the water are just as terrifying as you might have thought. And let's throw you right into the deep end, if you can excuse the pun, and start with the anglerfish. With sharp teeth, a bulbous body, and an almost invisible exterior, this creature has been nicknamed the common black devil for a very good reason. It's found in depths of water around 3,000 feet deep where there's almost no light and the temperature is close to freezing. Make sure to stay away from those teeth or you'll be in for a sharp surprise. The next odd creature found deep under the water is the fang-toothed snake eel. This horrifying-looking beast swims swims around in depths of up to almost 300 feet. Most of its time is spent hiding away in burrows underwater, but every so often they venture to the surface. In 2017, one of these eyeless eels washed up on the Malaysian coastline, confusing most people who caught sight of it. Its Latin name translates roughly to terrible serpent, and we can see why. You might be beginning to realize now that most creatures that live deep underwater aren't the prettiest animals, and they don't particularly need to be because there's little to no sunlight in their habitat. But that doesn't mean we're not shocked when they occasionally rise to the surface. The blobfish is a deep-sea fish that dwells within the dark depths earthquake struck in March 2010. There's no definite connection between the two, but it does make us wonder exactly what those deep-sea creatures know that we above ground do not. All of these creatures that have been discovered in the deep sea all seem to have plenty of unique features, and we can see why, because the bottom levels of the ocean provide some fairly difficult living quarters. But while many of these animals so far have been relatively harmless, one creature that's not so gentle is the goblin shark. Unlike many deep-sea animals, the goblin shark isn't afraid of color, and its body ranges between pinkish gray to bubblegum pink. But any cutesy thoughts you'd get from the color of this beast will quickly be deserted when you get a look at its teeth. This shark has long, slender, fang-like teeth attached to soft and delicate jaws. But where this animal really draws attention is from its electrosensitive snout, which can actually pick up electric fields. Now that's a trait you won't find in your average goldfish bowl. It might be easy to look out for the goblin shark because of its distinctive features, but it's not so easy to spot some of the other terrifying deep-sea discoveries. If by any chance you found yourself about 3,000 feet deep in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico or the Indian or Southern Ocean, you might just come across a D. enigmatica. This mysterious specimen hasn't been studied too much because of its elusiveness, but it resembles a sort of jellyfish. However, from a distance, it actually looks more like a large trash bag rather than a living creature. It has no light of its own, so the only way it can source light is through other bioluminescent animals. Researchers are doing their best to learn more about this animal, but for now, it's probably safer to avoid it. All of these creatures so far have been spotted alone or in pairs at most, but there's one place deep under the water where you'll find lots of terrifying animals huddled together for a specific purpose. If you can find the remote spot between Hawaii and Baja California, you might come across a space known as the White Shark Cafe. If the name wasn't clear enough, it's a space in the deep sea where male great white sharks congregate, and for a while, scientists have not known what for. These animals love the ocean's midwater zone, which is a huge region with depths ranging from 660 feet to several miles underwater. Here they can find any number of light-sensitive prey to feast on. Now experts think that the sharks head to this cafe for a huge dinner. If the thought of coming across an unusual animal in the deep water didn't scare you, what about if you came across an actual human? Sadly, we're not talking about a living and breathing person, but instead just their remains. For example, if you visited Lake Tahoe, you might have heard of the secret graveyard buried in the depths of the water. In 2011, the body of Donald Christopher Windecker was recovered from the lake, but he was in shockingly good condition. His body had been around 350 feet into the water, which is more than 3 times the safe limit for scuba divers. His body had been preserved in the water for 17 years, and doctors were still able to analyze his cause of death. So it's no surprise that many people think that the lake is home to an entire graveyard of old, well-preserved bodies. Most of the terrifying things we've listed so far have been pretty small and easy to miss if you were in a rush, but you'd have to be a very oblivious person to fail to notice a whole mountain range. But that's exactly what was discovered deep underwater thanks to some very impressive satellites. These 1,000-meter-high mountains run across the length of the sea floor so far down that many modern mapping techniques can't detect them. This might not seem outwardly terrifying to you, but who knows what else could be floating around under the water if experts manage to miss entire mountains on the seafloor. What's even creepier is that only an estimated 0.1% of these mountains have been explored, and there are thought to be critical marine habitats there too. Is there anything weirder than a sea mountain? What about a sea canyon? Jemchug, which can be found in the Bering Sea, is the world's deepest underwater canyon, and it's so huge that it can only be seen in its entirety from space. If that doesn't terrify you, we don't know what will. With a depth of 1.6 miles and a volume of 1,400 miles cubed, Jemchug could fit the entire Grand Canyon inside it. So by now you're probably a combination of puzzled, confused, and a little bit scared by all of the odd things that have somehow found themselves deep at sea. But the last one is sure to perplex you more than most. In Canada, more than 14 human feet have washed up on the shores after finding themselves floating around the ocean. All of the feet discovered have been clad in walking boots, which sure is a strange coincidence. It's thought that the material in the walking boot is strong enough to protect the foot, but also buoyant enough to bring it right back up to shore. 8 of the feet have been identified over the years, and 2 of them matched into a pair. The remaining lone feet all belonged to men. Some people have even theorized that the feet might be the work of a serial killer or organized crime. That's all for 20 terrifying things found deep underwater. We hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please come see us again soon.